Welcome back, Defenders. Right now, I think Ukraine is the #1 news story in the world. People are paying attention because Ukraine just struck Russia with Storm Shadow cruise missiles for the first time. The day before, it was ATACMS missiles. 15 explosions rocked a Russian presidential sanatorium in the Kursk Oblast, potentially marking a significant expansion of Ukraine's strike capabilities with Western-supplied weapons. There are videos online. You can hear the cruise missiles. Storm Shadows fly pretty low, so we don't see the missile. But I want to share this with you, and you can just hear it, the incoming.
What, блядь? Взрывают сейчас. Вон там дым идет.
You can hear the impacts, and this entire clip is 2.5 minutes. You eventually see smoke rising in the distance. I'll link this down below if you want to see and experience it for yourself. So what was targeted, and this is pretty interesting, the target was only about 40 kilometers deep into Russia. So with permission for longer range strike capabilities, Ukraine deliberately chose for their first strike with the Storm Shadow to be within Gimler's range. The reason why is Gimlers, launched from HIMARS, have already been used on this territory up to this point. So I think this is pretty fascinating that Ukraine would choose for their first use of British Storm Shadow cruise missiles to not even use the longer range to their benefit. They went after a target that was close to their border in areas they've already been striking with Gimlers. And specifically, you can see this building from space. This is the main building, and then there's all these secondary buildings. And there's some kind of underground network connecting these buildings that's being used as a command post. So there are Russian and apparently North Korean generals underground here. So you can't destroy underground facilities with Gimlers. They're just not powerful enough. This is why Ukraine chose to strike this with Storm Shadows. They've got that bunker-busting capability when they make impact with the ground. There is a video. Ukraine had a surveillance drone in the air showing the moments of impact, but there's not much to see. It's Storm Shadows slamming into the ground, I imagine causing a lot of damage to the underground network, but I don't think we're going to get pictures or videos confirming what exactly the damage looks like. Russia did release pictures showing, the stamp Storm Shadow. They claim they've already recovered fragments of the missiles, and yeah, you can imagine the Russians are pretty upset. And concerning why this specific target, it's a command post. There were important Russian people down there. But I do think Ukraine is prioritizing deterring the North Koreans. The North Koreans have sent about 10 or 11,000 soldiers as a sample test run. And if it goes well, Kim Jong-un might send 100,000 or 200,000. Ukraine is trying to deter this. So they wanted to go after this North Korean general in this bunker. These are the unofficial reports coming from the Russian side. As a result of the strike, 18 Russian servicemen were killed and another 33 were injured to varying degrees. Among the wounded are 3 DPRK servicemen, 2 with serious injuries, and 1 female medic with minor injuries. The wounded have all been transferred to this Russian hospital. We'll find out. We'll find out in a couple weeks if North Korea doesn't want to send any more of their troops to a dead zone. So here is Russia's response. And they were always going to do this, I think, in response to the use of ATACMS. It was just a coincidence that Storm Shadows were launched, and then this ICBM was launched a couple hours later. Russia fired ICBM for the first time in the history of war. Intercontinental ballistic missiles have all been tested by nuclear-powered nations, but to actually use an ICBM in war, this was the first time. We made history. Although Russia is kind of cheating. This was launched from the Caspian Sea, and it didn't go the distance of an ICBM. What kind of missile was this? And this is the RS-26 Ruble. And technically, yes, the operational range is 5,800 kilometers. To be classified as an ICBM, you have to go 5,500 kilometers. But this missile is more of an IRBM, an intermediate range ballistic missile. Russia chose not to use an ICBM launched from Siberia. They instead chose something that's technically an ICBM, but really practically in real-world use is an IRBM launched from the Caspian. Interesting detail that the Russians didn't feel confident of using one of their road-mobile ICBMs launching from Siberia. There is a video, and there's not much to see. It's just flashes of light coming in very fast. For these kinds of long-range ballistic missiles, the re-entry vehicles come in pretty fast. I know for the Minuteman III, which was the ICBM system I was in charge of, the RVs come in at Mach 23. You're not intercepting those. You're not shooting those down at Mach 23. And the target, I also think, is very telling how the Russians think and feel. The fact that they would target Dnipro. Now, the damage was minimal. I think there was only a single injury. Russia took out the nuclear warheads and put in dummies just as a threat, just as a demonstration to the world to show they're upset they're not winning this war. But why the city of Dnipro? Well, they can't fake nuke Zaporizhia or Kherson. They claim these to be Russian cities. They don't want to fake nuke Odessa or Kharkiv because I think on their dream sheet they're still hoping they can take those. They don't want to fake nuke Kyiv because you need a decision-making center to negotiate with when you want to end the war. They didn't want to threaten Lviv because that's too close to NATO and the European Union. So the next big city, the logical choice, was the city of Dnipro. I really don't want to see the city of Dnipro get nuked, but we can't give in to Russian threats. We can't give in to their demands. I'm just explaining how they're thinking, but it's our choice in the West how we choose to react. And Russia's not going to get away with this. And this is hilarious. This is how dumb the Russians are. Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson asked not to comment on ballistic missile strike during a briefing she was giving. So she's at the podium giving a briefing and gets a phone call from her superior, and the microphone is able to pick up what's being said on the cell phone. This is hilarious.
Так, с нами ли портал News.ru? Да. Алло. Да, у меня брифинг. Да, хорошо, спасибо.
I love how she responds in English first, I know, but then she's instructed not to talk about Russia launching an ICBM against the city of Dnipro. Don't confirm it. And by doing this at the podium, with the mic picking it up, Russia confirmed it. That's how stupid these people are. So what changes? And it's absolutely nothing. Since day one of this invasion, Russia has struck Ukraine with nuclear-capable missiles like Iskander, Kinzhal, and KH-101 and 102. Another ballistic missile that went slightly farther is no different. It's just more nuclear blackmail. If Russia doesn't like strikes inside of Russia, they can simply leave Ukraine and end this war. Stop attacking. And on Twitter, I've been having fun with this year. I wish I had started doing these polls sooner, but back in June, this was after Russia reinvaded Kharkiv, and then we had to get Western permission to use artillery and Gimlers within 90 kilometers of the border to help out in Kharkiv. But I conducted this poll. Western weapons have been hitting Russian military targets on the territory of Russia for the last 2 days. Have you been nuked yet? This was back in June. We then did it again in August with F-16s. F-16s have arrived and been flying over the skies of Ukraine for the last 2 days now. Have you been nuked? And now we're in November. ATACMS have now been used on the territory of Russia by Ukraine. Have you been nuked yet? And there's no signs. According to the Pentagon, there's no signs Russia is preparing nuclear weapons use against Ukraine. There's a lot of people in the Department of Defense who have access to military levels of readiness. And I guarantee you, as soon as we have the intelligence, Russia has made a decision, or they're moving pieces in place, this is going to leak on the internet. This is going to leak to the press. We are going to get unconfirmed reports that something is happening. And we're not getting these reports. The Kremlin is like Swiss cheese. No secrets are being kept there. Western intelligence knows everything Russia's going to do as soon as Vladimir Putin decides to do it. And right now, I repeat, there's no signs Russia's going to use a nuclear weapon in the next 60 days. So Joe Biden has to do everything he can to help Ukraine. Prior to leaving office on January 20th, the United States announced their next security assistance package of $275 million. What's in it? Usual stuff: HIMARS, ammunition, TOW missiles, javelins. I think some larger packages are coming. We just have to wait another week or so. But weekly packages of very large sizes are coming soon. The United States also approved $100 million in sale of military repair equipment and services to support Ukraine. This is a threat that Trump could do if he takes office. He could stop supplying spare parts and expertise how to fix donated weapons. So Joe Biden is trying to prioritize spare equipment, parts, anything that Ukraine might need after January 20th if the United States military stops cooperating with them. Here's the next top story people are talking about. White House approves controversial anti-personnel mines for Ukraine. President Biden has authorized sending anti-personnel mines to Ukraine, contradicting his previous opposition to their use and drawing criticism from arms control groups. We can be honest, we don't have to like landmines. We don't have to like cluster munitions. So many countries around the world have banned them because once this war is over, people are going to continue dying from cluster munitions that didn't detonate and landmines buried in the ground. It's going to take decades to clear all of these from the combat zones. But the Russians don't care, and the Russians have been using them since day one. And if Ukraine is going to lose this territory anyways, mine it. Send in the mines. And unofficially, it's obvious the United States was waiting until after the November election to approve these. But officially, they're going to say they're citing changing Russian tactics as reason for reversing the landmine policy. Russian forces attack 10 times a day as they push towards Kursk. The Russians no longer have infinite vehicles they can just lose because the landmines, anti-tank landmines and FPV drones are so effective. Russia doesn't want to waste their vehicles sending them into combat. So more and more they're relying on meat wave tactics, sending groups of 4 or 8. If they die, who cares? We're going to send the next group in 20 or 30 minutes. Keep sending successive waves until a Ukrainian defensive position runs out of ammunition. This is Russia's strategy. This is how they think they're going to win this war. So Ukraine needs this boost. They need these anti-personnel mines to combat against all these meat wave tactics. The next thing President Biden has done, Biden seeks to cancel over $4.5 billion in Ukraine's debt. This was money given to Ukraine, part of the aid package passed by Congress, and it was always forgivable. Joe Biden would have waited until the end of his second term if he had won to forgive this, but given that he's leaving office on January 20th, he's just going to remove this from the calculations and equation for Donald Trump. He's going to forgive the loans now. So this is the correct move. And this is where language is going to change. If they will cut, I think we will lose. Zelensky tells Fox News on USAID. So for President Zelensky and members of his government, You don't have to convince liberals. You don't have to convince Democrats. 80–90% of Democrats still support Ukraine. So if Zelensky wants to win over MAGA, if Zelensky and the Ukrainians want to win over Republicans, they have to go on Fox News, OAN, Newsmax, whatever, and they have to change their language. They're speaking to a different audience, and now they have to speak differently than how they were speaking when Joe Biden was in power. So here is President Zelensky on Fox News using some pretty strong language.
What if the U.S. government cuts military funding to Ukraine?
If they will cut, I think we will lose. Of course, anyway, we will stay, we will fight. We have our production, but it's not enough to prevail. And I think it's not enough to survive. But that will be, if such choice will be American choice. So we will decide what we will have to do.
You can say America if America cuts aid. But once Donald Trump becomes president, Donald Trump views himself as America. So the language here, if Donald Trump cuts military aid, then Ukraine will lose and Russia will win. Meaning the NATO alliance will lose and Russia will win. Meaning America's partners will lose and Russia will win. Meaning America will lose and Russia will win. Is that something Donald Trump wants? To be a loser? You're not going to find a more pro-American country in the world right now than Ukraine. And is Donald Trump and MAGA really going to turn their back on these people? Here is Republican Senator Lindsey Graham once again doing his best. The language is going to change, guys. Listen to this clip of Senator Graham on Fox News advocating for Ukraine.
Ukraine is still standing. This war is about money. People don't talk much about it. But you know the richest country in all of Europe for rare earth minerals is Ukraine. $2 to $7 trillion worth of minerals that are rare earth minerals, very relevant to the 21st century.
So he says this war is about money, and no, it's not. This war is about democracy. This war is about freedom and human rights and protecting the international rules-based order. But MAGA doesn't care about that. So we can no longer talk about that. I mean, we can mention it when we want, but it's not going to persuade MAGA to continue supporting Ukraine. What they do understand and what they do care about is money. So here is Republican Senator Lindsey Graham saying, this war is actually about money and the trillions of dollars of untapped natural resources still under the ground that the Russians are trying to steal from us, the West, the EU, the NATO alliance, whatever. Senator Graham's going to continue.
Ukraine's ready to do a deal with us, not the Russians. So it's in our interest to make sure that Russia doesn't take over the place. It's the breadbasket of really the developing world. 50% of all the food going to Africa comes out of Ukraine. We can make money and have an economic relationship with Ukraine that'd be very beneficial to us with peace.
We can make money. This is something that will get MAGA's attention. Ukrainians want to partner with the United States to get this oil and gas out of the ground, these rare earth elements. I wish it wasn't this way. I wish we didn't have to talk like this. These are Ukraine's God-given natural resources, and they should be able to decide what they want to do with them. But Trump is transactional, and if we have to make a deal, we have to make a deal. If Russia takes this territory anyways, then Ukraine's lost it. So if Zelensky wants to talk to Trump and say, we'll give you no bid contracts, we'll give you favorable negotiations, we'll partner with American companies to get this oil and gas and natural resources out of the ground, it's still going to be high-paying jobs for Ukrainians, it's still going to be tax revenue, it's still going to be investment, and it's still going to be technically Ukraine's. If Ukraine can win this war and expel the Russians to get these natural resources out of the ground. Officially, the Russians say they don't want to talk. Putin rules out freezing the war in Ukraine, according to Dmitry Peskov. And I want to quick share this clip because I'm always fascinated when I hear these Russians speak English. I don't think I've ever heard Peskov speak English, but he was interviewed by an Indian news agency, and I just want to share with you what Peskov sounds like when he speaks English.
1,000th day since the war erupted, exactly 1,000 days. So I want your response, not as a Kremlin spokesperson, but as a peace-loving Russian citizen. When do you think can you expect an early end to the war?
I mentioned already, when it all started, it started against Kiev regime. And now it's continuing as a war between Russia and NATO countries. That's why it took a little bit longer, and it will take a little bit longer. I don't think it's possible to answer the question when can it end, when it can come to an end. But the only thing I can tell you, it will come to an end as soon as we reach our goals.
Russia is never going to reach their goals, so I guess this war will never end. That is publicly what they're saying. But behind the curtains, Putin is desperate for a deal. Putin is desperate for a freeze in the conflict. He's never going to publicly admit this, and when he spins it to his people, whatever he gets, he's going to spin as a victory. But Putin is open to discussing Ukraine's ceasefire with Trump after January 20th. And I've been watching the right-wing influencers, what they're saying, and they're not sounding too confident about what Trump's going to do once he actually has power. Here's a tweet from Tucker Carlson. A lame duck president just started a hot war with the world's most dangerous country. All of us are very close to being killed. Yet somehow the Republican Speaker of the House hasn't even mentioned it in public or in leadership meetings. What is going on? So this is the pro-Russia wing of MAGA saying, why isn't Speaker Johnson bad-mouthing Ukraine or saying, for sure we're cutting off support or blah, blah, blah. Tucker Carlson is attacking Speaker Johnson because he can't attack Trump. Trump is the one in the last 3 or 4 days who has said nothing. Trump has an opinion on everything. Trump tweets all day, every day. But for some reason, he doesn't want to talk about ATACMS. He doesn't want to talk about storm shadows. He doesn't want to talk about escalation. He did prior to the election, but now that he's coming back to power, he's okay with it, I think. And the reason why is if Joe Biden escalates, Trump can view or frame himself as the good cop. Joe Biden was the bad cop. He did all these terrible, nasty things. I, Donald Trump, am the good cop, and I'll be your friend, Russia. I'll give you a deal. Agree to this, agree to this, agree to this, and we can stop the fighting. Is it going to work? We're going to find out after January 20th. But yeah, this is encouraging. Another good piece of news, Congressman Matt Gaetz withdrew his nomination to be U.S. Attorney General. I mean, there's a million reasons why this was a bad choice, but this guy was a Kremlin-talking propaganda mouthpiece, and he's not going to be Attorney General. And he resigned from Congress. So he's a private citizen. He's a nobody now. I don't think he's going to be in Trump's government, so Russia just lost a close ally. We'll see. Other bad news for Russia. Drones hit Russian ammunition storage 680 kilometers from the border. This was the 13th GRAU arsenal, and Ukraine struck it with drones. This is what it looks like from space, and these ammunition depot strikes aren't as big as they were 2 months ago, because I think the Russians learned and they're no longer storing all their ammunition out in the open air. That was a big weakness that led to some pretty spectacular explosions about 2 months ago. But I'm guessing Russia is actually spacing out their ammunition and putting their ammunition inside the bunkers, which makes it hard to detonate them. Russia accidentally drops 250-kilogram bomb on a school in Belgorod. Russia bombs itself about once a week, and it's probably going to continue. Russian ruble falls to 100 per dollar in official exchange rates. That article was from yesterday. It's 101 today. The Russian ruble just lost more than 1% of its value in the last day. So if it loses about 1% a day, it's more than a 300% devaluation over the course of a year. That'd be pretty beneficial. I'm going to keep checking this chart and seeing how bad it gets. Russian regions cancel New Year's office parties to support soldiers in Ukraine. Russia can't afford to have holiday parties anymore. Their military is doing so badly. So let's check in with a common soldier, and these videos hit the internet every day. Russians complaining about everything. And this Russian soldier isn't complaining about his government or Putin. He's complaining about corruption and how wounded or killed soldiers are having their benefits stolen. What this war has done, what has it done? I was the commander, yes. No shoulder strap marks, I'm washing the uniform. Assault Reconnaissance Separate Recon Company. What the politicians say about us, they say nothing at all. Who are we for them? We are meat for them. Meat, meat. Meat to make money off of. To make money off of our injuries. To hide a person, to label him as missing in action, and appropriate his money. Many wives in Russia, many so many. I'm sorry for you girls. So not sorry we invaded Ukraine, not sorry we're engaged in an unnecessary war and people are dying. I'm sorry your death benefits aren't being collected when your husband, father, brother, son dies. The other story, Sweden investigating Chinese ships' possible role in Baltic Sea cable damage. 2 of these communication lines were damaged by a Chinese vessel dragging their anchor across the sea floor. And if you do it once, okay, maybe that was an accident. If you do it twice, that's intentional. So yeah, this Chinese ship has been apprehended. There's an investigation going on, but I'm guessing Russia had something to do with it. Let's get to the good news for Ukraine. UN World Food Program allocates $2.1 billion to Ukraine through 2027. Sounds good. UK, Germany, Canada, and Luxembourg announce additional $30 million for drone coalition funding. Thank you so much to these fantastic countries. Germany delivers new military aid to Ukraine, including howitzers and Gepards. Thank you so much to the people of Germany. All right, let's check in on the fundraiser we're doing as a channel, as a YouTube community. We're calling it the Broe Christmas Convoy. And our goal, once again, is to fundraise $1 million. And we're doing incredible. 3 days into it, and we're at $547,000. This is insane. We can go on the Donorbox page, and I can see that 6,229 people have kicked in a small amount. When you donate, there is a way to write a comment, and I can go on the Donorbox page to see people's comments. Let me just share a couple of these with you. From Simon, $110. Thank you so much. May the homeland of Tanya and Anna find peace and restoration, and may the invaders enrich the soil to restore the beauty of their garden. Here's a $62.62 donation in memory of Staff Sergeant William R. Neal Jr., 3rd Separate Forces Group Green Berets. Here's a donation from Kevin, $114, in memory of a truly lustrous spirit and all combat medics. A lot of people are making donations choosing to remember somebody or honor somebody that they lost. If you're capable, I know people are experiencing their own financial hardships or limitations. By just watching this video, you're part of this fundraiser. Thank you so much. But if you have the financial means and you want to donate maybe $5, $10, or $20, we can supercharge this fundraiser and get it done this week. It's up to you guys. I do have faith in you. And if you're still thinking, let me share one more video. This is the 14th Unmanned Aerial Reconnaissance Unit. They're going to be a unit getting a truck and some drones. This is a video from Alexeyevna. Here's what she has to say.
Hi friends, we are 14th Separate Unmanned Aerial Vehicle Regiment and we need a pickup truck and a minibus for striking operations along the entire front line. We asked JakeBroe and charity fund Help 99 to help us. Thank you for supporting Ukraine. Slava Ukraini!
Героям слава!
Let's get these heroes a truck. I do want to play one more final video. This was on the 1000th day of the war. Americans who support Ukraine gathered in front of the White House to sing the Ukrainian national anthem. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.